Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is part of Haley2024, The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. This one's going to be on how we reform the foreign policy in the military. How do we go to a private military? If you don't know anything about me and the movement, it really relies on a lot of free enterprise, a lot of capitalism, getting away from the government's monopoly and government's control of so much. Now, in the foreign policy, we do have a lot of government control, but we can bring a lot of free enterprise benefits into the military. Anyway, let's go over my structure. First, we're going to go over the complete CRA structure that you need to know, and then how the military and the diplomats and the commander-in-chief all play into this. So, we have the CRA structure. You see a little bit of the hierarchy. The screen's a little bit small. It's not meant for you to read every line on here, obviously. Go to my webpage. We're going to explain this with some other things, but what this slide is going to show you is the hierarchy. You have the CRAs, which is a base of all government. Then you go to the representative level up here, and then that's the representative level for per sector. And then we have the parent sector board, and that's just mainly organizational. The basic regulatory governing agencies are the CRAs. Let's go over that a little bit more. We split all government power into 30 sectors with distinct elected representative leadership per sector. So, I'll go over that slide in a minute. Let's go over the 30 sectors real quick. 5 in the charity system because we go 100% away from the welfare system. All government welfare ends, we transition responsibly, and we go to a charity system. The foreign protection system, federal level, deals with foreign policy in the military. We're going to go over that. That's what this whole video is about. There's 5 in there. The violent crime mitigation system, there's 5 in there, dealing with law enforcement, the courts, the prisons, and the police. We'll go. That's another video. We got 15 others dealing with healthcare and financial and insurance. You got food regulations, and you got education, and you got manufacturing, you got human resources. You got environmental, you got labor law, you have work safety, you have transportation, you have media, you have land and water. There's a lot to get into on all those. I got 3-minute videos on everything. Everything is on my website. You can look at it really closely. But we're going to concentrate right now on the foreign protection system and how that fits into everything. Now you have to understand that within every sector, and we have this at the federal level, state level, and local level, there's going to be, so right now let's talk about the military. In the military sector, there's going to be the sector board. On one side, you have the sector board. On the other side is a rating system. That's kind of like the sector board for the rating system. Rating system is to give high quality information, and they can actually place rating floors, which means that's a first line of representative control. It doesn't say you how to get there, but it says you have to be above a certain standard. It doesn't regulate and tell you exactly how to do it. There's a lot of ways to get above a certain standard. So the rating floor is a lot better way of, if you have to go to a representative oversight, the rating floor is the first way. And we never go to a representative oversight unless there's negative externalities, insignificant negative externalities. On the CRA side, you have them regulating you. Now, each one of the CRAs are full governmental units. They have executive, legislative, and judicial power. At the representative sector board level and the rating system, that's a full governmental unit as well. Executive, legislative, and judicial. Parent sector board, same thing. Full governmental units. Okay, you pick, and your neighbor picks, guy down the street picks, everybody picks the CRA they want to join. Their CRA governs them. Now, in most of the categories, most of the sectors, it comes into play a lot more than in the foreign protection system. In the foreign protection system, a lot of it has to be representative control. But we can still bring a lot of free enterprise into it. I'll go over the 5 in a minute. But this goes to show you that a CRA is, everybody joins a CRA, so they have members. The members elect the leaders of their CRA, and they do the representation. Send representatives up to the representative level. So we no longer have voting in November, where everybody votes for one of 2 people. We first select our governing agencies. They are also representative agencies, and they proportionally send representatives up to the representative body, and then they can pick the main leader, the representatives. There's a lot to get into on that. We're not going to get into it right now. But then the RA on the other side, there's also 12 different philosophies of how to rate. There's a lot of different perspectives on what the outcome should be and how to get there. So that's why we have 12. 12 on the CRA side, 12 on the rating system side. Roughly 12. Okay. Very important slide here. No one person can serve in a position of official authority in more than one sector, there's 30 of them, in more than one level, federal, state, or local, more than one branch, legislative, executive, or judicial, and as well as a separation of the CRA side and the rating system. So, the rating system has the exact same number of representatives as the CRA side. They have executive, legislative, and judicial. They have federal, state, and local, and they have the 30 sectors. Any one person can only serve in a position of official authority in one of them. One sector, one branch, one level of government. And then also, if you want to move up to the representative level, you're not in charge of the CRA. And if you want to be up at the parent sector level, you're not in charge of the other ones. There's a lot to get into, and you see how I dramatically increase the representation. So each representative, kind of like the Congress right now, is in charge of labor law and environmental policy. Well, we're going to split those up to 30 sectors. Okay. There's a full distinct CRA system at every level of government. Every city and every state has a distinct system. So every current government has the full 30 sectors. Now, that means every city of Virginia Beach has a full 30 sectors. The city of Los Angeles has a 30 sectors, and a small town over in Wyoming has 30 sectors. Now, a lot of small towns are going to join together for efficiency and productivity, but for official units, they're going to be separated. They're going to be significantly, they're going to be distinct entities, legal entities with different responsibilities and authorities. But they're going to work together in big groups as well. Okay, there's a lot of socialism in the current system of the military. And it has a lot of the problems of socialism. It has the inefficiencies of socialism. We're going to bring free enterprise benefits to this. So, it's sector 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We'll look at that in a minute. We already went past that slide, but we'll get to it in another slide in a second. Haley2024 proposes that the United States have a division of responsibilities and authorities for foreign policies in 5 sectors. Everything we do in foreign policy, we're going to split up to 5 sectors. Again, distinct elected representatives per sector with top leader. Every sector has a top leader. So let's go over those 5 sectors real quick. The foreign diplomats, the State Department. The Secretary of State will be the top leader. You can call him the president if you want to. They'll all probably have different names. Someone will call them the DFP, Diplomatic Foreign Policy. You can probably come up with a better name, but that's my going name right now. It's a working name right now. So, those are the State Departments. You're going to have a top leader. They declare war, they make immigration policy, they do all that stuff. Now, if war is declared, it goes down to the Commander-in-Chief. Totally different sector, different representatives, the different top commander, the president, if you will. But because we don't want to call 5 different people presidents, we're going to call one of them president, or one commander-in-chief, one DFP, one MC, one MCS, one MAA, what you see on here. Okay, I'll explain each one of those in a second. And okay, so you have the whole officer corps under the commander-in-chief. No military can operate without a commander-in-chief saying so. Now, the military corporations are going to hold all military forces, all military capabilities. It's going to be in the free enterprise system. Publicly traded corporations, there's a mandate that each one of these military corporations, and there has to be, there's probably going to be about 50 of them, We have a range of, you cannot be above 10% and not below 1% of the overall military capabilities. So you have a decent separation, but not so much of a separation that you get to too small of a unit. Now you're going to have a whole bunch of really small units, 10, 20 men, 100 men, 500 men, whatever. That's still way lower than 1% in a company, but they're underneath another military corporation. We'll get into all that. A little bit of rabbit trail right there. But they hold all the military military power, military capabilities. Well, where do they get their money? Well, there's taxes involved. The military capability system, the fourth sector here, they're going to receive money from the states, and the states are going to use the sales tax. They can use a little bit of the head tax, they can use a little bit of real estate tax, they can use a little bit of income tax, but I think I want to stay with sales tax on this one. A lot of ways you can do it. Every state can kind of do it their own way, but my system, I prefer the sales tax for this one, just so it's pretty darn consistent across the nation. My goal is $1 trillion or 5% of GDP. You know, as GDP grows, the 5% obviously that grows too. That 5% has to fund all 5 of these sectors here. You know, the military corporations, that's probably going to get well more than 90%. The diplomatic foreign policy, they're the diplomats. You have to fund the State Department. The military capability system will determine how much to fund the diplomats, how much to fund the full officer corps, how much to fund the themselves, and there'll be a checks and balance by having some other people make sure they're not funding themselves too much, because it's always a risk when you have somebody funding themselves. So there's a check off. There's a way to mitigate that. In the Military Authorization Agency, it's a separate representative body with a leader, but total representative body, and they have to authorize anybody with power. 70% vote. Nobody can have a position of power. Nobody can be a private in the military, the lowest man on the totem pole in the military, or the highest person, the commander-in-chief, any officer, anybody. They have to authorize that. If you're a commander of an aircraft carrier, they have to authorize that. Now, obviously, they're going to have standards. You have to be pretty patriotic. You cannot be doing fraud. You cannot. You have to pledge allegiance to the country, to the commander-in-chief, to the basically everybody in the military has to pledge allegiance first to America, then to the DFP, then to the CIC, the commander-in-chief, then to the Military Authorization Agency. Everybody has to. Each one of those has different responsibilities. The commander-in-chief has original authority to fight any foe on American soil, protect American interest, protect American people. He has original authority to do that. But to declare war and go into hostilities outside American soil, you have to have the DFP sign off on that. They have to declare war. And again, a 70% vote. So we're not going to go to war often. But when we do, the DFP is going to say, go kick butt, and the commander-in-chief is going to have the capabilities to go do what he has to do. So hopefully that's not going to be much, and hopefully that's just going to be a major deterrent, because nobody wants to go there. We have the best military in the world, and when we have to bring free enterprise benefits to the military, we're going to be much stronger. We're going to get rid of a lot of waste, and that's going to increase the amount of capabilities we have, because the less percentage is going to go to waste, more into good, strong capabilities. So we'll get into how that's funded. On my website, you see this graphic. It's really hard to see, but you see the hierarchy. All 5 of those have a sector board level, and you see the MCs underneath them, the CRAs underneath them, the DI. Ooh, I think I did that. I need to change that a little bit. I did a wrong abbreviation on one of them. Okay, so let's keep on going. But you see how there's a hierarchy here, and the parent sector board has a final authority on what percentage. I say 5%. But if they think that we're at major war, we're in major conflict, and we need to increase that to 6 or 7%, they have the capability of doing that. If they say nobody, we got so much strength, we don't need this much strength, we can cut this down to 4%, we can do that. Now keep in mind, this 5%, maybe 5.5%, whatever we end up going at, good 20 to 25% is going to be set aside for a major war. It's just going to be sitting over there as capital in stocks and bonds in a bank somewhere where if we need it, we can go get that money. It has to be a declared war if we're going to go get that money, though, about 20 to 25% or so. And then even within what's left of that, there's probably going to be 10, 15, 20% of operating budgets to do missions, to do an aircraft carrier to go out, to do training exercises. Now, a lot of training exercises are going to be in the normal course of business. The military capability system will have to figure that one out. But it's not like we do $1 trillion as the starting point. That's more the ending point. We'll probably be down to about $600 billion, about 60% of that being regular operating to create the capabilities. Maybe 10 to 20% will be small missions, what we have going on currently. And then if we go to a major war, we're going to have stockpile up that extra 20%. And hopefully 5-10 years down the line, we could have easily $1 trillion, 1.5, $2 trillion built up over 10 years or so. And then that we don't have to sit there and raise taxes. That's already in stocks and bonds and in capital, in store of wealth somewhere. You look at my monetary policy and you're going to see how we can store wealth easily. We do a lot better monetary policy. Okay. And plus, look at how much capital you can have if you're going to have military corporations. Military corporations are going to be worth trillions of dollars. And they're going to sell stocks, at least hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're going to sell stocks. It's going to be a way to for people to store their money in military corporations owning stocks in there. So I don't think I get into that too much on this one, but it's going to be pretty valuable. Okay, Haley2024 proposes that representation switch from elections of individuals to selections of agencies. I haven't talked about which 4 of these are going to go to primary authority at the representative level. 1 will be at the CRA level. But let's go through this real quick. So we don't want the elections in November anymore. We want people to select their CRA, then their CRA sends representatives up to the sector board level, and then the representatives proportionally, based off membership, vote on their main leader, their main commander-in-chief, their main diplomat, their main person over top of the military authorization agency, their main person over top of the military capability system, which the military capability system, quote-unquote president, the top guy, he's not going to have that much to do. He's just going to be the executive, making sure money goes to the military corporations the way they're supposed to, and all 5 of them. And then a rating system as well. Okay. The foreign diplomatic policy sector runs the State Department. That's a full State Department. Every DFP, when you sign up for a CRA in this sector, based off their membership, let's say one has 6%, another one has 9%, another one has 12%, other ones have 10, 8, we get up to 100%, but we have, let's say, a dozen of these 8 CRAs. We're going to call this one a DFP, Diplomatic Foreign Policy. Okay, so they fund, their CRA funds their diplomats. So if somebody has 6% of the DFP, 6% of the members of American citizens, they supply 6% of the ambassadors. So every representative going up will be like an ambassador, an envoy, or something. They'll have an official role in the State Department. So if DFP 2 or DFP 3 has 8% or 12%, they send and they staff up the State Department based off their percentage of their membership of the United States citizens. Okay, let's keep on going. And all 5 of these have primary authority at the federal level, by the way. The other 25 sectors have primary authority at the state level. That's not here or there right now. Okay, every citizen picks a DFP agency that best represents their philosophy. So liberals and conservatives, libertarians and middle-of-the-road people, people from the Heritage Foundation or people from the Brookings Institute, they all have different ideas about how we should run our State Department, how we should have relations with other countries. There's a lot of different philosophies. 12 different groups is enough to have a very wide range of philosophies. You pick the one that best matches you. And then they, within your CRA, within your FDP, within your diplomatic foreign policy, I think I got that initials wrong there. That's DFP, diplomatic foreign policy. I need to change that. Okay. So within your group, your members, the American citizens that are in that group, elect the leadership and elect the representatives to go up to the representative level. So they're going to want to send people that match their philosophy. Everybody sends people that matches their philosophy. Then they're independent once they get up there, but they better be doing what their organization that sent them wants them to do. Otherwise, their DFP is going to change leadership and replace them with another representative. So, roughly a dozen DFP agencies send, I say 200, because there's almost 200 countries out there in the world, and they're going to staff up the State Department. They'll all be ambassadors and the like. But then between these 200, each one comes with the representative vote related to their membership. So we have one DFP. There's only 12, but we send 200. So somebody with 10%, they're going to send 20 of them because you need that many. So, but those 20 people will come with, what is that? If I'm not mistaken, 0.5% each of representative vote. So they vote on the leader, the top president, if you will. We'll call them the Secretary of State, but they're the top. Okay. So proportional is very important to the DFP sector board. Okay. Or maybe I do have it right. Maybe it's foreign diplomatic policy. Yep, got it right. Okay. Those 200 foreign diplomatic policy representatives vote on the one leader who was America's highest negotiator with other nations, the president, if you will. But we can call him the Secretary of State because we don't want the president confused with the president that's the top commander-in-chief, president of the other ones. And not to mention, all 30 sectors has a top leader at the federal level. We don't want them all called presidents. The family law has a top leader at the federal level. Won't have much control. Deals with only a little bit of family law stuff, but still be president. We're going to try to come up with different names to match their sector. Okay. Anyway, the top guy is America's highest negotiator with other nations. And these representatives make foreign law, foreign policy, immigration policies, they declare war, they authorize the use of military power, which those two things are a little bit different now. A full-out declaration of war means we go out and we kick another country's butt. An authorization of use of force, not nearly as strong. We can utilize force to really change somebody's behavior that's really causing some problems. We don't want to totally demolish a country. We just want to use force to change it. Again, a 70% vote to do this, by the way, of the proper representatives. And these are much better representatives than we currently have because they are coming from every CRA, and every CRA stated their mission statement. They stated their philosophy of how it should be done. And everybody picked their CRA based off that philosophy and their track record. Okay, all 200 FDP have real roles such as ambassadors, envoys, among others. However, always under the leadership of one FDP leadership, always under the control of the Secretary of State, the top leader. So it's always under the leadership, because we need to speak to other countries in one voice. And if you don't like what that guy's doing, right now, if you don't like Trump, you can't just change parties and affect anything. If you don't like what Barack Obama's doing, you can't just change parties and make a change. You have to wait till the next election. Well, in this structure, you can quickly, let's say there's getting ready to be a vote on the war, whether we go to war, and your CRA signaled that and said we're going to vote yes on war, but you don't want war. You can change your membership to another DFP that says we don't want war. It gives a lot better representation of what the people really want. Now, you should try to trust the people that you originally went with, and if they are still doing things honestly, stay with them. However, if you really are strong on let's not go to war, you go pick one that doesn't go to war, and that changes that representation level. Your change with the decimal points for proportional representation goes all the way out to every single person making a difference. When he switches, your percentage changes. You see it right on the website. This CRA has 5.89394243% of the U.S. citizens, and you change it to whatever that number is, +1 or -1. Okay, let's go to the Commander-in-Chief. The Commander-in-Chiefs are going to be the full officer corps. Every Commander-in-Chief, CRA, we're going to call them CICs now, so you join the CIC that you want to join. That has your best philosophy, the philosophy that you agree with most on how to be the best Commander-in-Chief. Rules of engagement and other stuff will come into play. Who's sending people up there with little experience versus a lot of experience? Who's sending them up there people who really like John Bolton or really don't like John Bolton? What kind of actions do you want to have? Now, they have original authority to fight foes on American soil if they're on foreign soil. They have to wait till the diplomats say they're allowed to fight on foreign land. There's a lot of military right now. It is January of 2020, and they're going through war. The declaration of war. They're going through War Powers Act right now, and a lot of discussion about the War Powers Act. There'll be something similar to give the foreign diplomat, the Commander-in-Chief, overseas. If we have people over in a base in Japan or in Afghanistan or wherever, obviously they want to give that Commander-in-Chief the ability to protect their people within their base. If you're going to put a base somewhere, the Commander-in-Chief has to have a certain amount of authority. They don't have to sit there and wait for the diplomats. The diplomats put the base there. They had to vote to put the base there. The Commander-in-Chief can't just put a base wherever he wants to. But the fact that you put a base somewhere means now the Commander-in-Chief has the authority to protect their people within that. Or why is the base there? Okay. Every citizen picks a CIC agency or organization or whatever you want to call it, the CIC, Competitive Regulatory Agency, that best represents their philosophy. Roughly a dozen CIC send 50 representatives proportional to their membership to the CIC Sector Board. I said 50. You can go 100 if you wish to, 200. The number's not really important to me. Now they staff up the whole officer corps. I'm not sure how many officers there are in the military. What, 10,000 or something? I might get that wrong. So let's say there's 10,000, just use easy numbers. And if you have 10% of the membership, 10% of the citizens as your member, you do 1,000 of the 10,000. That's 10% of the full officer corps. And talking about the 50 here, you get 5 of the top leaders, the top representative leaders. Then they'll proportionally elect the top Commander-in-Chief. In every war, you can designate one person as a Commander-in-Chief to implement that war. Okay. And you might just have the same guy implement all the different wars that we might have going on. Hopefully we don't have 5 different wars at one time. But you can say, okay, in the Middle East, this commander-in-chief is going to take care of everything in the Middle East. And we have a little bit of stuff going on in Central America. This guy's going to handle Central America. They can do that if they wish. So you can have a greater concentration of the commander-in-chief taking care of their sphere of influence. Hopefully we don't have people in South America doing stuff. That's not the point. I'm just picking an area of the country. Okay, let's keep on going. These 50 CIC representatives vote on the one leader, the top commander-in-chief. We're going to call him the president if you wish, but we'll just call him the top CIC. Okay, the leader of the CIC will have full access to all military corporations' assets. These military corporations, called MCs, they're military assets. He has the full ability. If he needs it, he's allowed to use aircraft carrier, the planes, the tanks, the personnel. He can order them around as long as he has the authority to order them around. Like he has original authority to fight off foreign foes on American land. He doesn't have to ask anybody else. He has that original authority. He can use all the military assets that he needs. Obviously, he needs to use them wisely. And if he doesn't use them wisely, he'll probably be kicked out of the commander-in-chief role very rapidly and replace him with somebody else. The authorization agency, they have the ability to kick him out if they see him going outside of the realm of normal behavior. So there's a lot of checks and balances is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of checks and balances. Okay, but not so many checks and balances that somebody can't. We don't want to rule by committee. However, we do have a way to stop somebody from going outside the norm. Okay, the leader of the CIC will have full access to all the military assets and personnel to fulfill the powers authorized by the FDP, or if that's outside of American soil. Okay, the other 49 representatives of the CIC have real roles in the command structure. They have real roles. One might be if you're not the top guy, you might have the Pacific realm. Another one has the Atlantic realm. One might have down by South America. One might have over by Australia. I don't know how they divide everything up now. I'm not sure how they're going to divide it up later, but they're going to have real roles. Some of these are going to be commanders of the aircraft carrier battle group. There's about a dozen of those, maybe a little bit more. Probably one of these will be in charge of each battle group, and but they'll have real roles, and they'll have their people from their CIC officer structure to also be their people. Now they're going to be intermixing too. They should be intermixing. The CIC is not going to just control this group and the CIC control this group. They're going to intermix. There has to be a lot of cooperation. It's a mandate. The rating system and the military capability system. If you don't cooperate, you're going to get a lot less funding. They're going to force you to cooperate one way or the other. The whole structure is going to force you to cooperate. The military authorization agencies must do a complete background check on all FDP and CIC representatives and approve with the 80% MAA vote. So the military authorization agency, we even go farther than the 70%. We go to 80% when you're talking about the top representatives. We want to make sure the top representatives are very patriotic, no fraud, no foreign influence. We do a very good background check on these people, and hopefully we can get enough people that can get an 80% vote to get out of there. And the MAA, Military Authorization Agency, they're going to be representatives coming up from their representative bodies that every person put their trust in. So the DFP must protect their authorization with a diplomatic accountability for war panel. Whenever they give their authorization for war or authorization for the use of force or the declaration of war, they put a panel together and that panel decides when that declaration ends. Right now, the Congress declares war, and there's really no good mechanism for that to stop, unless the Congress and votes for it again, and then the president signs it. Well, that's a lot. That's 66.5% or something, 66 and 2/3% to stop the war from happening, or stop the declaration of war from continuing. We're still using war powers that was from the 1970s and 60s and the 40s. We're using the 2001, 2002, 2003 declarations of war or military authorizations for the 2001, 2002, 2003. We're still using those in 2020 to do war, to do bombings and the like. Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe it's a bad thing. But this diplomatic accountability for war panel, it only takes 40% to take it away. Take away your authorization for the use of force or the declaration of war. It takes 40% of the representatives to strip that away. 70% to give it, 40% to take it away. All military capabilities are roughly in the 50 military corporations. So let's go to the military corporations. Private companies, publicly traded companies. You own stock in those companies. You have a vote on the board of directors in those companies based off the number of stocks that you own. So that gives people, the common citizens, some power there. Now, they have major rating floors on what they can do. They're just not free for all. Military corporations decide what type of tanks and planes and aircraft carriers and satellites to put up. They hire their own personnel, their own military people. They have their own training, own boot camps, their own colleges, military colleges, their own everything. And they'll share. There's no doubt about it. There'll be cooperation to share training facilities and the bases. Most bases are going to have, if there's 50 military corporations, most bases are going to be owned or controlled or people renting space probably by over half of these military corporations. Maybe 10, 15, 20, 30%, depending on the base. Now, some are going to be totally owned and controlled by just one military corporation. But let's say you have a master jet base right now. We have one over here in Virginia Beach for Oceana. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. NOB, the Norfolk Naval Station over in Norfolk. There's a lot of things that are going on there. 3 or 4 aircraft carriers and destroyers and a lot of other ships and a lot of personnel. Most likely it'll be probably on a big Norfolk base will probably be about 40 of the military corporations. All renting space from them. All having good cooperation with them. All taking space and using maybe even some shared personnel. We'll see how it works, but the free enterprise system is going to make it a lot better. Okay, every military corporation, main product is providing military capabilities to America. MCs, the military corporations, never decide whether to go to war. The only people that can use the capabilities is the commander-in-chief, authorized by the diplomats. So you see how there's checks and balances here. If everything goes right, when there really needs to be the use of force, the military corporations will have their assets ready to go. The commander-in-chief knows those assets very well and knows how to command them. And then the diplomats send them off to go do a mission, to fight a war or whatever. So the military corporations, their product is to provide America with capabilities. They can never use them on their own. They train, they get them better, they can do a lot of things, but they can't use them on their own. Okay, military corporations must have at least 1% and not more than 10% of the overall military capabilities, thus resulting in roughly 50 military corporations. I say 50 because I guess that's probably going to be about the right amount. Maybe less, maybe more, I don't know. It has the potential of going up to, 99 to 100 of them because it's 1%, or it has the ability to go down to, 10 or 11. So I put it in the middle at 50. Now we want to put a top limitation on there. If one grows too big, they just simply multiply. They can have a very heavy cooperation between two of them because they derived out of the same one, and then they split. They multiply, whatever you want to call it. And if they drop below 1%, we don't want them controlling labor hours anymore, military capabilities, because they didn't do the good enough job. Because they're now less than 1%. But if you do drop below 1%, you just have to be folded into another military corporation. You still have all the assets. You might have a lot of subcontractors. You become a subcontractor. There's a lot of ways it can be done. Just because you drop below 1% doesn't mean you just totally go out of business. But you now have a military corporation that's over top of you. There's always a hierarchy, and everybody always has a boss. Military corporations as well. And military corporations are going to know whether to invest in a aircraft carrier or what type of jets, what type of tanks, what type of personnel, how many personnel. They make all those decisions. And they have to live with the consequences of what type of capabilities are they given America. So every citizen will have the opportunity to buy stocks in publicly traded military corporations, thus voting rights for the board of directors of their MC. These things are probably going to be $100 billion and up. They're going to be big corporations owning hundreds of billions of dollars worth of assets. Now, in war, sometimes those assets get sunk. The tanks get left on the battlefield injured and damaged. Satellites go out. Some things age out and they're getting ruined. That's why we keep on funding the whole system. While it has worth, you keep on getting funded for that worth. Okay. Military corporations can contract out their services with diplomatic approval and oversight. So let's say this company wants to do business over in, let's say, South America, and there's some hostilities down there, and they want to hire a military corporation to give them protection. You can do that. You have to have the diplomatic approval. The big corporation has to pay them. So there's funding coming in, and the diplomats sector has to approve it. And they monitor it, and there's a lot of checks and balances in that system. Every MC will have a Pentagon command structure and encouraged to have cooperations with other MCs. So a military corporation with the aircraft carrier, aircraft carrier will probably have assets from a dozen or more of the military corporations. One supplying the jets, one supplying the some personnel, one supplying some special forces over here, which is another military corporation's assets. That military corporation rented space on that boat, on the aircraft carrier, whatever. Some people, one military corporation has a nice weapon system to bolt onto their back of their boat for protection, and they send manpower and the equipment over. There's going to be a lot of cooperation, a lot of intertwining, and the military capability system is going to be able to figure all this stuff out, and they're going to be able to get the money where they're supposed to be. We haven't got to that yet. We'll get to it in a second. All MCs make all their decisions on labor contracts, weapon systems, training, among other decisions regarding attaining a fighting force. Every labor contract for military personnel, every weapon system, all these military corporations are going to have to invest in these things. The ones that do it the best are going to have more military capabilities. If you don't pay your people well, and let's say you only paying your officers $20,000, well, you're not going to get very good officers at $20,000. People are going to do better labor contracts for military officers, and they're going to pay them more. Or good personnel, special forces. You get what you pay for in a labor contract. They're going to have to figure out the prices for that. Just bringing in the rule of prices. What capabilities can this one group or this one weapon system bring? Well, if it costs $100 billion to man and operate this weapon system, but they're only going to get $50 billion. Did I use 100 billion? I'm using big numbers. Let me start again. Let's say 100 million. There's a weapon system and it's $100 million to operate. But the military capability system only thinks it's worth $80 million. 80%. They're losing 20 million. They're going to get rid of it. They should get rid of it. Utilize that money somewhere else where it's more valuable. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, but the military corporations makes those decisions. People making better decisions, more efficient, more productive decisions, decisions that truly give a good military capabilities. They're going to get rewarded with money for that. People making very, very bad decisions, they're giving everybody a little musket. Let's say we get a whole bunch of people paying a minimum wage, give them a musket, and they're very untrained. Well, nobody wants to give them that money. The military capability system's not going to give those people any money because they're not well trained, they're not very well armed, they're not very well educated. We don't want to send those people out there just to get killed. So, obviously, that's just an extreme example of a bad decision. You train somebody over and over and over and over again, that's going to be good, but is it too much? Are you paying, you train somebody with $1 million, but you're only going to get $1 million worth of training and supplies, but you're only going to get $50,000 from them, or $500,000 to do it? Well, maybe not. Maybe there's better ways of getting military capabilities and utilizing your money. That's what the whole role of prices does. We haven't got to the military capability system, but here it goes. I say 4.5%. I go back and forth with whether it's 4.5, 5, 6%. I have different numbers in different slides. I understand that. But all states and territories must turn over by law 4.5% of their state's GDP to the military capability system. And they're going to be using the Human Resources and Sales Sector Board to collect taxes. So, mainly sales tax. Target is $1 trillion. And the military capability system collects that money. Now, this is a 1,000 member board because I want to really divide that power up because we don't want corruption. I know 1,000 based off $1 trillion budget. That is still $1 billion per person, military capability system representative. But that one person is not going to have $1 billion just to spend how they want to. Every representative of those 1,000 are not going to just, here's the $1 billion, send it to where you want to send it to. No. There'll be a complete system. We'll go over that system in a minute. But it's not necessarily the system I'm going to be setting up. They have to set it up. They'll figure it out, the best way to do it. This is a representative body. Okay. But the reason for the 1,000 is to spread out the power and reduce the amount for corruption. We already have the significant risk of corruption when 435, if I got my number right, House of Representative members operate a $800 or $900 billion budget for the military. We already have that risk, but there's ways to mitigate that risk. And 1,000 members is one way to help mitigate that risk. But we're going to have a full system where any one person is not going to be able to do so much to really move money from one corporation to another and get kickbacks or whatever. We got a lot of ways to solve that problem. The rating system, the military authorization, military capability. There would be ways to help solve some of that problem. There'll be a full set of representative bodies really looking into making sure they're not doing self-dealing, conflicts of interest, and the like. Okay, but they are going to fund military corporations based off their percentage of overall military capabilities. If a MC, military corporation, has 10%, they're going to get, let's just go with $1 trillion. It's not going to be a full trillion because that trillion has to fund the officer corps, the diplomats, the military authorization force or agency. It has to fund themselves. It has to fund the rating systems of all these groups. But that's just for easy numbers, $1 trillion. If you have 10% of the military capabilities, you get, what's 10% of $1 trillion? 10, wow, $100 billion. $100 billion is 10% of 1 trillion. So if you have 8%, you get $80 billion. So you see how you're doing that. So how do they do that? I don't think I have it on the slide, so let me just go over it real quick. Okay, they might assign, I want 10% for tanks. I want 10% for aircraft carriers. I want 5% for satellites. I want 3% for nuclear weapons. I want 2% for this type of military capability. I want 7% for our veterans. There's a lot of ways to break it down. Now, when I say 10 or 5, I really mean with a whole bunch of decimal points. So they determine, I want capabilities for aircraft carriers. I want air superiority capabilities. I want computer superiority. I want the personnel, and I want to have 10% of my budget just for special forces. I want 5% of my budget for the Marines. I want whatever. You see what I'm trying to get at. They're going to make those decisions, not me. I'm setting up the full structure. The structure allows this body to make those decisions. And then, if somebody decides the rule of prices is, once you get that dollar amount, let's say it's going to be $100 billion for aircraft carriers per year. Well, how many aircraft carriers can that sustain? How can it do 10, 12, 15? Well, if that's not enough, if you don't get enough per aircraft carrier, some aircraft carrier is going to go out of business, the oldest one probably, and not get replaced so quick. If they need another aircraft carrier, they're going to say, we're going to need to bump it up from 10 to 11% so we can get a whole other aircraft carrier. And when I say that, that also means the planes that come with it, the F-18s, F-22s that come with it. The personnel, the nuclear submarines, the full aircraft carrier battle group, another destroyer that comes with it. You might get an aircraft carrier battle group for 1% of the whole overall structure, and if you want 15 of them, that's going to be 15% of your budget. You understand some of the ideas I'm getting at. That's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but hopefully I gave you a good enough idea. So, the military capability system funds all 5 sectors, and both the rating system and the CRA side. The rating system is probably going to get less than 1% of it, but they are going to be super important to give high quality information from different perspectives, and some, because it's the military, are going to have high levels of security clearance, get to know everything that's going on. I mean, in like everything. Nothing can be withheld from some of the highest people in the rating agencies. They're going to be some of the wisest and most experienced people, ones with the most amount of ethics and most amount of oversight. Anyway, so they're going to be able to see everything. They're going to have some pretty high people that can see everything because they're in the rating system, and they need to be able to have that, and they have to keep things secret. There's be other people who they have to put it out to the public, what's going on. So the rating system is important. Some things secret, some things out and open, but they're going to give, with the 12 different rating agencies per sector, and, well, I say per level of government because I always do, but the vast majority of this is going to be at the federal level. You're going to get a lot of different perspectives on how the military is doing, how the diplomats are doing, how the commander-in-chief's doing, how the authorization boards are doing. So you're going to get a lot of perspectives, a lot of good information out there. Okay. Let's see. In the authorization sector, they have to authorize every person. a 70% vote. Some people at the very highest level, an 80% vote, to allow them to be even an enlisted man. It just, even at the lowest entry level position in the military, whether you're in the Air Force or the Marines or the Army, from the lowest person to the highest person, you have to have a vote, at least a 70% vote. So we don't want somebody in there that's anti-American or untrained. I know they go through the boot camp and all that stuff, but they have to be monitored, and this agency will monitor them. And we do a 1,000-member. That's just a representative body. I'm not sure how much they're going to be funded. We don't know yet. The capability system is going to determine how much this sector gets, and the rating system. And okay, all military personnel swears allegiance to America first, the U.S. Constitution, the FDP, the diplomats, the CIC, the Commander-in-Chief, and the MAA, with clear guidelines on the authorization of each representative body. Each one has extremely well-known lines of delineation of responsibilities and authorities. And everybody in the military, especially the officer corps, especially the more experienced and people in charge, they're going to have very clear lines of who has what authority. If the FDP, if you're fighting overseas and the FDP calls off the war, you have to stop. The top commander-in-chief cannot do it anymore. People need to know what authority belongs in which sector and what leader. That's going to be very well known. Anybody with, obviously a enlisted man is not going to know everything, but their sergeants and their corporals and their whatever rank going up, they're going to know. Okay. It's going to be very clear who has what authority. Okay, states must fund a 1% of GDP authorization mission escrow account overseen by all 50 state level parent sector boards. 60% of these representatives must agree on an increase. This is just talking about 20% of the full military budget has to go to a mission escrow account. Setting aside money. Hopefully building up to well over $1 trillion, if not $2 trillion over a decade. Somewhere around the $100 to $200 billion per year set aside just for a large mission. Because what we don't want is when a large mission comes up to have to start raising taxes. We want that money there already. Because that means the people that we're going to war against, they know that we have the money to fight that war. We're not having to tax it out of our economy. Now, it's over in capital, it's in capital goods, it's in stocks and bonds, it's in a lot of different assets. And it can be pulled out. And people understand it's going to be pulled out and we're going to have less assets. But at least we have the money without having to tax it to bring it into this and fund more. And obviously it's going to go through the military capability system if they release that money. And the military capability system is going to have to figure out, okay, how do we do it? How do we fund? And the 50 state level parent sector boards are very important. We want a checks and balance, so it's not just the federal sector board, parent sector board, but the 50 state parent sector boards. Representatives from those groups will come up, and 60% of those have to either increase that amount, to increase the budget, or to release that money. So both of them. Okay, there's a rating system for all 5 sectors, giving quality information and having a robust power to stop abuses and corruptions. We talked about high quality information from a lot of different perspectives. And per sector, every sector is going to have a very different idea of what they need to rate. One, how's the military working? How's the commander-in-chief's working? How the what's happening over the diplomats? A lot of different ideas there, and from a lot of different perspectives. And it's going, and the rating systems are going to have power, real power, to stop abuses and corruption. Now, the military authorization, they're going to stop abuses and corruption too. But the rating system is another way to do that. They can put rating floors and the like. Okay, the The FDP, the diplomats, the commander-in-chief, the military capability system, and the MAA have almost all the power at the sector board level. That is a representative level. These are representative systems where every citizen selects an agency and agencies send representatives to their sector board proportionate or proportional to their membership. The military corporation sector keeps most power at the MC or CRA level. Okay, so 4 of the 5 sectors have primary authority at the representative level. But most of the money, probably good 85 to 90% of the money, is in military corporations. And that's at the MC level, the military corporation level. And then they are regulated by the CRAs. But most of the power is right there within that military corporation. Obviously, there's going to be commander-in-chiefs throughout the command structure because they have to command them. They have to know how to command them. They have to be involved with them on a day-to-day basis, just like they are right now. The officer corps is still day-to-day basis in command of the enlisted men and stuff. The same thing with the military authorization. They're going to have people embedded everywhere, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. The military capability people, they're going to be embedded with all the different aircraft carriers, the bases and the like, to make sure everybody still has the capabilities that they say they have. They're going to be doing check marks saying, yes, you have 1,000 people that are ready to go. Yes, these weapon systems are up and running well. And if they're not running well, they don't have as much capability, do they? They're going to get funded less. Other people are going to get funded more. All the different military corporations are going to be competing for that one budget. Okay, military corporation sector keeps most of the power at the MC or CRA level. We just talked about that. There's a 70% representative vote threshold to take representative action and a 40% threshold to repeal a representative action. It's a big point of the full CRA structure is we should not just have a 50% vote to, or above a 50% vote to make something happen. We want it to go up to 70%. And at 40% can take it away, take that action away. Unless that action is original authority and personal citizenship and ownership, things that are, I forget the exact words to say right now. I have it on another slide. The 70% is to make something happen. Now, if there's significant negative it has to be a significant negative externality for it to go up there. But 4 of the 5 have significant or almost all authority at the sector board level, the representative level. Okay. We talked about this, but we're going to go through the my 3-minute introduction series real quick to go back over it to make sure I didn't miss any points. The diplomats declare war. They do immigration policy. I haven't talked about the pockets of freedom, my main immigration and foreign policy thing, but read that. The declaration or authorization to use of force, the diplomats do that. Citizen ownership model of government. You really have to read my blog on the citizen ownership model of government. Hopefully I'll do a video on that. The 70% vote for a new citizen. So it's not just 30% or 30. It's not just 30% of the people that have to say you're a new citizen. It takes a 70% vote to say a foreigner who wants to become an American can become an American. Any child born of an American automatically is automatically an American, but you have to have a 70% buy-off on the representatives for each individual to become a citizen of the United States. Because we have a citizen ownership model, and you're dividing the ownership up in over more people. So you're taking ownership rights away, because it's one thing to be a 10% owner, but if you add another person into that mix, now there's 11. Now you only have 9% ownership of that. Now obviously there's 330 million people in the United States. We only have so much ownership, but if you keep on adding new people, you dilute our ownership in that. Some people we want to come over, some people we don't. But 70% means we're going to get some of the better people that are not criminals, that are not terrorists, that are not that can contribute to our country. Okay. Pockets of freedom. Let's just go over super quick because it's my main idea for foreign policy and immigration. We want to create pockets of freedom around the world. Whether it's on the open ocean, which I love the idea of going on the open ocean and creating some floating platforms. But let's go. So let's say we go to the, South America, Central America, Asia, Middle East, Africa, or the like, and we rent or acquire land legitimately, trade, buy, legitimately acquire land, and we're talking maybe 1,000 square miles, 10 miles by 100 miles, and then we allow people to immigrate there, and then have this full CRA structure that I'm talking about, but have freedom. It's protected by our U.S. military, and but we have freedom there. Okay, let's keep on going. You're just going to have to read over it, but that's basically a pockets of freedom to allow people from oppressed nations, or people who want to immigrate to America. They can go to these places first, become used to having freedom and liberty. And they don't have to. This is a long-term place too. This is a lifetime. You can become a citizen of a pocket of freedom. But if you want to have this as a stepping stone to come to America, you can do that as well. Anyway, we're not going to get into pockets of freedom right now, but it's done legitimately, requiring land, and then you allow immigration to come there, and it gives us a place to put a whole bunch of people who we want out of North Korea, China, but don't necessarily want them into America and becoming Americans yet, living among us. Some of them we do, but some we don't. But this gives another place to put them and let them start having capitalism there, having free enterprise there, having the rule of law there. Everybody in America, everybody in the world can thrive if they have rule of law, protection from foreign foes, and have a good law structure. And I believe this whole CRA structure is a good law structure for that. Anyway, and we have a strong banishment laws in the pockets of freedom as well. It's very important to know that we have a strong banishment law. So troublemakers we can just kick out of these places, so the people who want to live free can be without the troublemakers. Okay, the commander-in-chief, make sure we did that. The full officer corps, 70% vote in foreign lands. All CICs elect the top CIC. All the CICs, all the officer corps from all the different CRAs, they have to obey the top CIC, the top guy, the top commander-in-chief. And the Military Authorization Agency is involved in that as well, like I said before. Military corporations, we went over all these. If you want to pause and look at the bullet points again, it's already well over an hour on this video, so I'm just going to go through it. But capability system does it by percentages of the whole military budget. Some for tanks, some for planes, some for aircraft carriers, and the like. And we save 20%, somewhere around the 20%. Don't make that decision. But for small missions, and another 20% for large missions. So even if it starts at $1 trillion, the full military budget is probably going to be closer to $500 to $600 billion, where you have small missions and large missions set aside. The small missions are going to be used on a regular basis. The big missions budget hopefully will keep that money coming in. Okay, military authorization. You can stop and look at those bullet points, but I already went over that. Let me see if there's anything I didn't say. The military authorization. If they pull power from somebody and that person chooses not to give it up, they have a plane, they have a tank, they have a aircraft carrier, and the military authorization company pulls that power authorization, that the commander of the military authorization agency has the power to direct any military forces that are out there to enforce his withdrawal power. So we can't let somebody go out and illegitimately use military power. I bought these in my military corporation, these tanks, these missiles, these planes, and I'm going to use it. You can't stop me. No, we have a we have a lot of ways to stop you. The commander-in-chief will probably have some ways to stop you. The military corporations will have a way of stopping you, but another checks and balance in there. And they also authorize some weapon systems. Anyway, my second to last slide. I always end with this: the freedom of about a dozen CRAs in dozens of full systems, dozens of full sectors, to experiment will yield great results. That's free enterprise. We need to bring free enterprise into governance. Free enterprise into letting some people being governed the way they want over here, or choose this one or that one. About a dozen will give a lot of wide variety of how you want to be governed. A lot of different philosophies how you want to be governed. The people who govern badly, they're going to lose memberships. People are not going to be wanting to go there because they're governed badly. People who are governed well, they're going to get a lot of new members. Then they're going to split, and the good people, after they split, people are going to decide which one to go to. It's always going to increase the positive, decrease the negatives. That's what free enterprise always does, and we need to bring it into their regulatory structure. So while this foreign policy structure, 4 of the 5 have primary authority at the representative level. It's very important to know that the free enterprise comes in at the military corporation sector, and that's where most of the money is. But we have representatives of the people in charge of declaring whether we go to war and commanding that war. Anyway, everything's real easy to find on my website. I got a lot of writings on this, a lot of other videos that are surrounding some of this, dealing with the rating system and the like. And please consider a donation to my website. But until the next video.